Hello, hi, welcome in the ISL podcast. And today we have the wonderful guest, Kjaer Bathel. And Annie is CEO and co-founder of ReDI School of Digital Integration. You are also the proud mentor at Grace Accelerate Female Entrepreneurship, Rotary Peace Fellow, and European Young Leader 2020. It's a huge privilege for us to have you here, Annie. Welcome on board.
It's a huge privilege to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Annie, if you can tell us a little bit more about you and about the ReDI School, just that our audience will be familiar with what you are doing on a daily basis.
Yes, I can. I will try to keep it short. So, well, I'm 38 years old. I'm originally from Denmark. I have had the great privilege of moving a lot in my life. So, when I was 11 years old, my parents decided to leave Denmark, and they moved into a small Norwegian farm in the middle of nowhere, basically. So that was the first time where I needed to learn a new language, get new friends. Also moving from the city into the countryside was a cultural change, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a really nice experience for me, and something that I think I've kind of replicated in other parts of my life. So when I was 16, I moved to Australia for the first time as a part of the Rotary Youth Exchange Program, and was really lucky to meet young people of my age from all around the world, and learned that we're different, but we're all essentially the same, and we can really connect, cooking together, dancing together, laughing together across boundaries. So I carried that experience with me from my young age. Then later, when I had to decide what to study, I decided to study at a school called the KaosPilot, which is a 3-year education in Denmark, teaching project management, leadership, innovation. After that, I started doing consultancy work, working on corporate social responsibility, so bringing nonprofits and for-profit companies together. I later studied a master degree in Japan in peace studies. So I have this very interesting, strange profile of being a KaosPilot and a peace fellow. So I kind of combine peace and chaos. I also work between innovation, technology, and peace building. So I guess my specialty is building bridges between people and between disciplines. And in 2015, I founded ReDI School of Digital Integration in Berlin, which is a social enterprise that is teaching refugees, migrants, and asylum seekers technical skills. In some cases, how to use a laptop if you haven't really used a laptop a lot before, or if you have a lot of experience but you are interested in going into work in the tech industry, so learning web development or user experience design or Internet of Things, so going really deep into the technologies. We now have 5 schools in Berlin, in Munich, in Düsseldorf, Duisburg, and in Copenhagen. And just yesterday, actually, we started the spring semester, and we're teaching approximately 1,000 students. So things have moved very fast, and it's been a really joy for me to be working in such an international environment. We now have students from 53 different nationalities.
Wow. It's amazing. And do you think that because you travel a lot and you connected these all dots, that maybe from the first point, from the first side, from the first view, it's some things that you can't connect, but you connect them so perfectly that we have the fruits of this right now?
I think I'm a very curious person, so I like asking questions, and I like connecting with people to understand who they are and what they're passionate about. And when I meet people, I usually just ask a lot of questions to really understand who they are, and I try to share of myself and my life as well. And I think it's a great skill to be a good listener. And then once I get to know who people are, then I start sort of connecting the dots and thinking, if this person talked to that person, wow, they have the same interest, or what could they be doing together? So really, I mean, you would usually say a win-win, but that sounds very business-like, but really thinking about, well, if Lama and Anna was talking together, they could really be doing a good project. And that is the basics of how I have always been operating, whether it's creating new friendships or building projects and businesses. It's about creating that shared value. So I think it's always, when you look back, the dots are aligned. I think Steve Jobs from Apple also said that beautifully, but I don't have a big master plan of, this is what the life is going to look like in 5 years time. I do think a lot about it, but I'm very much trying to stay in the moment and be flexible and try to listen as carefully as I can to understand what is actually possible.
It's some kind of the coincidence or serendipity, because even when you mentioned the story on your TEDx about the Mohammed, how you met him and how the idea became, more alive about ReDI School. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah. So back in 2015. We of course all know that there was a lot of people arriving in Europe, mostly from Syria, from Iraq, from Afghanistan, and many of the European systems were completely overburdened. So we had about 1.2 million people applying for asylum in Germany, and the system was used to taking care of about 50,000 per year. So a lot of the processes that used to work didn't work anymore. So it was difficult for the government to provide just the necessary access to services. So a roof over your head, food, the need of safety. So in times of great crisis, you really need new solutions, and you need to also move fast, because people potentially are suffering. So in the midst of all of this, I was running a big workshop where we were getting stakeholders together to think about what can we do to help improve the life of refugees arriving in Germany right now. And we did a brainstorm and came up with many ideas of what we could do. But I think the biggest insight was that when we looked around in the group of the 50 people or so that participated in the brainstorming session, we realized that there was no refugees there. And of course, that's just a big no-go, because the true experts, the people who really know what is needed, are of course the refugees themselves, and they didn't have a seat at the table, because I didn't have any friends of mine who were refugees, at least at that time. So I and the rest of the group working on this were starting to go into refugee camps and just making new friends. And like I said, I'm very curious. So I found myself at a spot where we were having food, and next to me was this young man, and his name was Mohammed, and he came from Iraq, and I was asking him about what his background was and what he was planning to do in Germany and what he was hoping for. And he was telling me that he had a bachelor degree in computer science and that he really wanted to work here, but that it was difficult for him because he didn't have a laptop. Like most refugees, you don't flee and travel with a laptop under your arm, because you would probably lose it, or it will break, or it will get stolen. So he would try to go to the local library a couple of times a week to teach himself, but he was just fearing that this was just not enough to get him a job in Germany. And listening to his story, it moved me and it touched me. And I also felt that this is such a big tragedy, that he really wants to work. He's so passionate. He brings a skill set that we really need in Germany. There's currently 84,000 available jobs in the German tech industry. what is missing between the high potential that Mohammed has and making him an active citizen and a good workforce for the German industry.
Mm-hmm.
So that evening I met a friend of mine called Weston, who was a CTO at the time in a tech startup in Germany, and he said, well, I'll be happy to teach, like, can you put me in contact with Mohammed?
Oh.
And that is how the idea of ReDI School came to be. I literally wrote a post on Facebook that same evening, and I said, if I start a tech school for refugees, who can help?
Wow.
And the next morning I had about 20-30 people saying I can teach. I have a laptop that I can donate. I have a space. Or some people were saying, you know, I have really no idea about technology, but I can really bake a good cake. And then the food also brings people together, and it's a lovely way to connect. So we took the laptops, the spaces, the teachers, and the cake, and we put them all together in one joyful combination. And this is how literally we got started. Then we built a website. We started using social media. We started collecting laptops. Then started implementing pilot projects, so just small versions of what a tech education could look like. So just in one day, then it became a weekend, then it became a week, and about 4 months later, we started the first 3 months tech courses in February 2016.
So how many students have you had so far in your school?
So at the last count, it was about 4,500 unique students. So of course, some of the students are taking more classes. So all our courses are modular. You can start from a beginner level and then go to intermediate and advanced. But yeah, it's growing into a small village.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I want to ask you about how do you have any suggestion or advice how we can integrate ourselves with other cultures, like when the migrants came to the new country, how to encourage them to be more integrated, to not isolate? Because in the UK sometimes I face I spot the problem that the people are living in the particular areas of the cities, and they are going to the particular shop and then the factory, for example, and they spend time with the people from their own environment all the time, constantly. So do you have any suggestion how we can, think and apply more integration between us?
Yeah, I mean, you're so spot on. I think we're living, unfortunately, more and more in our own little bubbles, whether it be neighborhoods where people are similar to us, or we, in a virtual reality, we are also in our own little bubbles in Facebook or where we are online. So we only hear many times the voices of people who are similar to us, which feels safe. But oftentimes the big innovation and to really flourish in life, it's good to break out of those safety bubbles or comfortable bubbles, to really explore our full potential. But that takes courage to go out into the unknown and meet people who are different than us. But I think we as human beings can only really develop and become somebody else and a better self if we're willing to have that courage. The question is, of course, how, and I think this is where we have to be a little bit creative, maybe even maybe a little bit playful, because I think through play and just saying, well, we're just having fun, it becomes less dangerous, and it just becomes something that you're kind of testing out. So I think a lot can be done through cultural activities or sport. So joining up, I think there's a lot of online initiatives now, whether it be, for instance, on Meetup, where you can go and join activities that you usually wouldn't join, maybe in a different neighborhood than you're used to. It could also be, I mean, outside of Corona times, just go to a different part of town and, I don't know, go and sit in the park and talk to people. People might find it a little bit random in the beginning, but simply trying to connect and ask empathic questions. I think it's a really it's a good way to start. On a larger scale, I think we also have to think about how do we engage with the end users in a different way. So when the job centers are developing new services, how do we engage the unemployed people to actually design the solutions to the challenges that they are having? I think for far too long, a little bit similar to when we were doing the brainstorming at Berlin Town Hall, we had all these experts and who are really smart together in the room. But when the end users and the real people who have a vested interest in this solution or a solution being built, they need to be part of the discussion. And I think that is something that dramatically needs to change. And then it's of course also for the people to then lean in and say, I want to be part of the solution. I am an expert in whatever that might be. If it's I'm an expert in being Polish in the UK, you know, that's a unique skill that a British person who has lived their entire life in Britain wouldn't know what that actually feels like, and the questions that you have, the doubts that you have, the ideas and the customs that you have. So I think we're all experts, and applying that and leaning in and say, actually, I know this, I have ideas about this, and I have a responsibility to use my skills to make the world better for me and for people like me. I think that's a good way to start.
Thank you, Annie. And I would like to maybe add one thing about some kind of the, I don't know, mini champions or the leaders in the community, just because we face so many culture differences that we don't realize from the beginning, like, you know, why the people from Central Eastern Europe don't open the door for social workers, because they think that you will take my kids, you aren't there to help me, because in our country it's a little bit different. Or why we are afraid of police, so they are here to help us, I don't have to, but you know, because of the background and history, we don't trust. And sometimes, in the UK, we have almost 1 million of Polish people, and sometimes I'm really curious where you are. Where are you? Like, you know, we have to be more energized. I don't know. We have to be more alive and bring the best. And I think that maybe it's some kind of the issue around the confidence and around the language barrier as well. My English isn't good enough and I'm not good enough. It's like the constantly repeat story inside of our heads. So many people who are highly educated, they work beyond the, you know, education level experience. They do something which isn't their passion at all, just because they stop to believe in themselves. And it's, you know, it's quite sad that we have hidden potential, like we can bring some richness to this society, and we can't, because so it's a huge topic to explore.
Yeah, but I think you use such a beautiful word in saying we're looking for the small heroes, because I really think that every human being can make a huge difference. So a little bit like domino bricks, that you feel, well, I'm just the one, you know, making one small thing, but then if other people are following, all of a sudden you have a movement. And when Nelson Mandela became the first Black president in South Africa, he, in his inauguration speech, had this beautiful poem where he said that you playing small does not serve the world, and you need to let your own light shine, so that others can also be allowed to let their own light shine. And I think that for me has just been such a mantra of saying, you know, it doesn't help myself and it doesn't help the world if I am not allowed to live to my full potential. So I shall go out there and be myself, and through that hopefully inspire others to also be themselves. And I think that happens with those small heroes, like being a big hero and what we see in the videos. It feels so far away, so we don't think that this is something for us. But when I met Mohammed the first time, I had no idea what ReDI School was going to turn into. And literally the second time that I met Mohammed, he brought 2 friends and I brought 2 friends. And then all of a sudden we were 6. Mm-hmm. And then everyone was bringing 2 friends the next time, because that seems like if it's valuable, you can always bring 2 friends. Mm-hmm. But if everyone every time brings 2 new friends, all of a sudden you are a lot of people. You're really a lot of people in a very short period of time. And it's not something that is, feels overhuman or like you need to be the biggest Superman or Superwoman in the world. You just bring 2 friends.
Yeah.
Hopefully they also bring cake, then it's even better.
Well, yeah, it's really amazing story. And because you organize each month, we can meet you as a host on the experience design learning experience. How it's the name of the meeting? Experience learning.
Learning experience.
Oh, sorry, learning experience. Yeah,
it's a horrible name. But
so the meetings are really amazing, and you always invite very interesting guests, and they share their own stories, how to implement them. How to prepare some transformation for our clients or participants based on the experience, not on the content, like it's really how would you like to feel in this course. And the last time it was the lady, and she said about the small actions that we are taking, that you think that they aren't important and probably nobody even see it, but the small actions, each of us can create some wave that it will be unstoppable. So yeah, let's do it.
I am on it.
Annie, I would like to ask you some kind of the question about the political approach, because I thought when you support refugees in Germany, and we know that we are quite, I think generally in Europe, we have more and more nationalistic approach. The government are more on the right side, and I'm not sure that it's true, but it seems like the tolerance a little bit decreased the last few years. So have you faced the opinions that you should, I don't know, help or support more different group of people, or it wasn't something that you heard?
I have definitely heard it. I mean, if I want to make a really bad day for myself, I will read the comments on my TEDx talk on YouTube. Then you can really see the scum of the universe in one short glimpse. Hence, I don't read the comments, because it's just going to make you in a bad mood. There will always be people who have a different opinion, and that's the diversity that we live in. So what I do find interesting is of course, I appreciate diversity, and diversity is having many different opinions and being curious about why do other people think like that, and trying to work for a place of empathy, of understanding of why do people have these feelings. I think a lot of the very violent words that are being used in online or even in person, and also really violent behaviors of keeping people out, whether it's on a personal level or a systemic level, comes from a place of fear. And fear is something that we all have in our life at different points in time, and connecting with what did that feel like for myself when I'm in that situation? What am I looking for? And then trying, if possible, to connect with the people who have difference of opinion. We need to have the courage to have those kind of conversations with each other and try to be open, because that's the only way that we can build bridges and build a more peaceful society. If we just go heads to head with our different value systems and start shouting at each other, nobody is going to really truly be able to open up and connect, which is what we all want. And I think a lot of times, like, people might have different of opinions about whether refugees should come to Europe or not. But then all of a sudden, you can agree that Liverpool is the best soccer club, or whatever, Manchester United. And all of a sudden it doesn't matter, because it's just about soccer. And we realize that we share so many things. So creating these spots where people can connect about something that they're passionate about, and then nationality or language or religion doesn't matter, because there is a lot that we share. That is a good place to be working from. But that said, it can be hard. In my team, we have done nonviolent communication training and like a deep dive 20-hour course, just looking into that and how we, with empathy, can meet difference, and how we can transform conversations that are starting out violently in terms of words, and transform that into a place of connection and unity, and trying to understand each other. It's hard, it's not always possible, but it's something that we need to strive towards building. Politics, of course, has its own power struggles and dynamics. At ReDI School, we have decided not to go into any political decision, but rather than engage in politics, be an example and a lighthouse that is uniting. So people, politicians from any party, is invited to come to the school if they are curious and they want to learn and they want to have a conversation with us. But we talk specifically about, what is it that we are doing, and yes, we are a school that is working with integration, but integration is not really something we tend to talk about at ReDI School. We talk about technology. We are a tech school, and we have experts coming from all around the world who are there to talk about tech. Then that, somebody is coming from Germany, and somebody is coming from Poland, and somebody is coming from Afghanistan or Eritrea, wonderful. That's nice. And we have better food in the kitchen.
Wow, it's really amazing. And the way that you conduct and your team, that you're running the ReDI School, it's such out of the box. When you, in one interview, when you describe this swimming pool full of clothes on the refugee and refuge, and you said that it was even hard to find the shoes for kids. It was full of, and I thought, wow, yeah, we need that kind of the support. We need that kind of the donation for sure. But the way how you support, it's like you give the real tool for these people to come back to the marketplace, to keep the dignity, to make some money, and provide the support for your own family. It's really amazing idea, and I thought, oh, wow. And now we know that the way how you create everything step by step, but it's really amazing how useful your school is.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that what has inspired me was this, I don't know if it's a biblical story or it's just a story about, if there's a hungry man, don't give him a fish, but teaching how to fish. Makes so much sense. And I mean, poverty in many parts of the world is still an issue, but in Europe, we at least have a lot of our basic needs covered. But still, even in a European context, there's still a lot of systemic violence. There are people who are living in the street. There are people who are unemployed, underemployed. We have challenges with domestic violence. There's so much that still can become better, and we need to take those challenges seriously and say, well, just solving the problem once, yes, it's going to make a difference, but if the problem comes back, it's going to be very expensive in terms of time and money to keep trying to solve this problem. So we need to try to figure out what is the systemic approach to making the structures and the system better so that the problem doesn't occur. And that can be really hard because systems have been working well for a long time. So making systems change is not something where you wake up one day and think, okay, I've got it, now I'm going to change the entire system. I think it needs a lot of experimentation. It needs a lot of, I'm going out and I'm going to test this and see if that's working. And if that's working, what else can I be doing? And what else can I then be doing? So like you were saying, step by step.
And like you said about NVC, nonviolent communication by Marshall Rosenberg, I thought, and you mentioned right now the domestic violence, I was facilitating the workshops for domestic violence perpetrators. And I remember when people ask me, are you afraid? You don't afraid to go there and, you know, conduct it? And I wasn't, because in NVC approach, when we focus on the needs and we connect them with the feelings, on the end of the road, it was so important to see, like, they are overwhelmed, they are, you know, tired, they are like, because it's so easy, I think, to judge or to put some label on the forehead and it's done, he's bad, he's good, he's, you know. But when you start to hear the story behind, and then you just try to understand this person really from the human point of view, yeah, it's much easier to help, and it's much easier to support. And when you said about the cooking, like to make some fun when we meet people from other, you know, countries, and we can create some international environment, you know, like 2 years ago I set up the international women's group when I invite my friends from all over the globe, and it was pre-COVID era, so every first Friday each month we meet in the house of the person who was the host. So every month we travel to the different house, and we had a nice dinner. So when we went to my friend who came from China, we had the Chinese tea and the Chinese, and we talk a lot, and sometimes we were laughing, sometimes we were crying, we were all together. And then the next month we travel to another one, and it was the lady who came, I don't know, from England, let's say, and it was some kind of the connections that we build. And you don't have to have money, you don't have to have, you know, brilliant language skills, you don't have to have any venue, you don't have, you know, you just invite people to spend some time together, and something is growing. So yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. I mean, yeah, that's it. I mean, at the end of the day, if you might have a bottle of water and you share that, or it comes from the tap, you know, that's a place to host. And then if you can hold that space and invite people and make sure that that is connecting, it doesn't take so much, but it does take a person taking the initiative to actually do it and to invite people.
Yeah, we need that kind of the people who become the island for others.
Yeah. But I think there was something really beautiful about what you said about the way that other people look at each other, because I think this is something that I learned very early on with refugees and migrants, that it has such a negative connotation, and most refugees, of course, don't want to be called refugees because they are Luna and Rami and they come from where they're coming from, and we don't want to have those labels. And what I really learned early on with our students, or our participants who we call students, is that when I start treating them as tech talent, because they are learning to become techies, they will start acting as if they're tech talent as well. But if they come to ReDI School and I'm like, oh, these are the dangerous refugees and we don't know if they can be trusted, they are going to start acting in the same way, and not refugees is something that is universal. I think that's what you were also really beautifully saying about the people who have been doing acts of violence in the past. If we see them as violent people, you know, I don't believe that they were born violent. You know, no child is born violent. It's something that is taught through culture. So we need to start seeing people as people, and start acting as if they are what they can become. So if other peoples are reacting that way, just like, you know, you are doing, and holding that space for people to be people, I think this is absolutely beautiful, and how we should be connecting. But my God, too many times we're, you know, connecting with a stereotype, and we don't even realize that is what is happening. So the more that we can really speak to the potential in other people and bring it forward, then hopefully they also are going to believe in their own potential.
Mhm. It's so important, and I think that it's some kind of the talent, or maybe the skill that you can practice to see more inside of the other people that they see in themselves. So I remember, and because I conduct the individual psychological practice in Poland, and I remember when I work with the clients and they came back each week, and sometimes when I ask, wow, how did you manage? Like, it's amazing work you have done, you know, so far. What kind of the resources have you used? And for example, this person told me, Angelina, I exactly knew that I have to come back here on Tuesday and you will ask me these questions. So I knew that I can't mess about. I have to do what I promised to do. And I think that, yeah, if you see the best, they give you the best from themselves, because they don't want to disappoint you and disappoint themselves. And it's and I think that you start to be, it's my personal story, and I shared it before. When I was 16 and I had my friend, she's still the closest friend for me right now, and I remember that she was from very wealthy family, and I was so curious why she wants to, you know, be with me or invite me. She has so many friends from her beautiful private school that she can invite and spend time with. And she told me, no, it's you, Angelina, because you have this potential. And I thought, wow, so I have something that I wasn't aware of. And I think that sometimes when you don't have this confidence or you don't believe in yourself, to have somebody on your side who will believe, and you can a little bit borrow the energy of confidence just to start, it's really important. So probably the best takeaway is from this conversation is, don't be by yourself. And Tara Brach, she said a very famous sentence that always look for the helpers, because they exist and they will help you. So the worst scenario is when you put yourself by yourself and you will be alone, because you don't have to go alone, and you can find people who will help you.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. And I think it's also about asking for help. Often we feel like, you know, we're not allowed to ask for help, or if I'm asking for help, I'm showing vulnerability or that I'm not good in things. But one thing that I have really realized is asking good questions to good people, that is leadership in itself, because you honor the person that you're asking for help and saying, you know, how would you be doing this? I'm thinking about this. How would you solve it? All of a sudden, you make them feel like experts. And if you are then two people thinking about this thing together and say, okay, you know, what if we were asking this person, like, what would they think about this problem? All of a sudden, you're starting to create these little movements, and it didn't come from a field of expertise where you know all the answers. It just came from asking an interesting question, and then going out and exploring. And I think we are asking too few questions. We are asking too few times we're asking for help. We think that we have to be strong and know everything, but actually, I think the biggest power is is asking other people for help, because it's such a compliment. Because people believe in you if they ask you for help.
And they like, even I think that the research from the social psychology proved that when you ask about help, the people like you more.
Yeah.
So even it's recommended when you start the new job and you're going to the new office, ask about help, they will like you more. Don't hesitate.
It's good. It's even backed up by science.
So yeah, we can follow it. Wow. Yeah. Oh, and it's so nice to speak with you and have you here. And I want to ask you about the because in one film I just saw that you mentioned about the dreaming, that you start the process from some kind of the visualization, and the dreaming is including there. So do you feel that it's some kind of the powerful tool to use to design your future?
Yeah, certainly. So I started my project Kids Have a Dream back in 2006. So this is, in one way, it's separate from ReDI School, but working with teenagers all around the world between 10 and 15, ask them what is your dream for the future. So not the dreams you have at night, but dreams with your eyes open. And then getting them to draw it on like an A3 piece of paper. And I've been doing that for the last 12 years in something like 3,000 young people from all around the world. And it's been fascinating to see just how, and how times are changing. So what was popular, to the dream that people were thinking about 10 years ago is different to what it is now. Like if you ask young people in Europe at the moment what they dream about, they will usually they're gonna tell you about their job, and not like necessarily peace in the world or something. And what they really want to become are famous on YouTube. And that is interesting to see, because when we started the project in 2006, YouTube was just founded as a company. It was a tiny startup. So when we are talking to the students now and we say, okay, you want to become famous on YouTube, like the future, when you actually get a job, or like the future is going to look different. Like the companies, the most fascinating things that are going to happen in the future doesn't exist yet. So it's for you to build that. And once you get that into sort of a teenager's head and they're starting to connect things, you can have really interesting conversations about, wow, okay, well, in the future, we'll have spaceships. But if it's like spaceships and like, what are the countries? I think there's a beautiful drawing from a boy in Ankara in Turkey, and his dream is peace in space. Because he was thinking about how we are fighting over borders on planet Earth, and in the future, when the countries are gonna fight over cyber, like the space, what's that gonna look like? So you can get really interesting insights working with young people when they get that sort of idea that they're responsible for in part for building their own future.
And do you have any practice that you follow, that you apply in your life, about dreaming or creating?
I'm actually lousy at practices because I'm very spontaneous. My husband is much better in sort of sitting down and doing his meditation. One thing that I really love doing, and I discovered during COVID, was that they have these dance classes online. So I'm actually attending weekly dance classes, and it's just wild dance. Like that, I'm not good at dancing, but I enjoy moving my body. So I'm doing 90 minutes of wild dancing online, and it's really fun. But it's a beautiful way to connect with my body and remember to listen to my big toe. I don't tend to listen to my big toe in my daily life, but when you're moving your entire body, all of a sudden you feel alive. So that, for me, that sort of bodily sensation and using my entire body and how my body and my emotions are dancing with each other. That is something that I truly like. I like being in contact with my body, because it releases energy and it releases new ideas. So I would say that. I also, when I lived in Japan in 2010 to 12, I learned to do Japanese flower arrangement, which in Japan it's like an art form, and usually you just go out and you find whatever plants is in season at the moment. So it's part of going out into nature and really appreciating the season, bringing it back in, and then working very sculpturally about, the most beautiful creations are those that sort of exist in the space where you don't put the flower, but the interaction between how you're placing the flower. And it's that, for me, it's like a beautiful moment of Zen or mindfulness that other people would be saying. I'm really not good at doing yoga. It just annoys me. But I think we all have our different ways of sort of connecting to that core of who we are, and that, for me, is in part done through dancing, in part done through flower arrangement. I love drawing as well, so I often like to visualize my ideas and sit down and think about it by also literally drawing them down, not in words, but in small figures. But I think we each have to find our own way. I keep practicing and experimenting with finding my own way of what works. It also depends on the day, of course, what might work better.
Thank you, and I think that it's a good like the prompt, that sometimes we forgot that the art exists and we have our serious job, and sometimes it's nice to invite some art to our life, like dancing, drawing, like you just mentioned, and I know that you are extremely busy, so and it will be the last question that I would like to ask you. It's about, because you travel a lot, so you was an expat. So do you have any advice for people who move abroad and they try to build or rebuild the life from the scratch? You are like, you moved to Japan, how to do it?
That's a really good question. So I think I've always been trying to connect with local clubs. So when I moved to Japan, for instance, I became part of Toastmasters International, which is teaching like speaking, keynote speaking skills. And in that club was predominantly Japanese, but being able to speak English because I was just learning Japanese. And that for me was just a beautiful way to get to know the local culture and the people. And I think joining clubs with locals is a beautiful way to start getting a different kind of network. I also found that if you can do something with children, it's good. So when, for instance, I was in Japan, I was helping out with a debating club. So I was teaching debating skills, but also debating with Japanese kids, which just gives you a completely different view of the world. But I think that there's something unique about like being of service to the local community and society, and children is often a good way to do that. So if you can become a sports teacher or an arts teacher, or use one of the skills that you have to give back into the next generation, because of course if you're doing something good for the children, then the parents will also start seeing you in a different light. And if you are a mother or a father and your children are connecting with somebody else's children, then the parents also get together. So I think that's, I mean, I'm not yet a mother myself, but I imagine that there's a lot of beautiful things that can happen through parenthood and when the kids are connecting.
Thank you, Anne, for the nice and lovely interview. Thank you for all answers and suggestions. It was so nice to have you here. I wish you all the best. And like I said at the beginning, before I switched the recording, I said about Dalai Lama, who mentioned in 2009 that Western woman will save the world. And I think that you are the evidence, and that it's true and it will be true. And from my side, I want to wish you, then of course the Nobel Peace Prize, like and yeah, and keep going. The work that you are doing is amazing, and yeah, it was a huge privilege to have you here.
Thank you very much for the good questions and having me, and also really keep doing the jobs. I had goosebumps during the interviews. It's just so beautiful what you're doing and how you're believing in others. So I'm on this journey together with you. So let's keep walking.
Thank you, Anne.